Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's KayThePA. Just got home from a 12-hour shift at work. I look really tired and a little crazy, but yeah, so it was a crazy night. We had this Baker Act patient. He was just acting a hot mess, but anyways, someone asked me to do a video on how I became an EMT, or my EMT experience. So I'm gonna do a two-part series. The first video I'm gonna do is how I became an EMT, like the steps I took, you know, and I mean, different people have different experiences, but I'm gonna tell you how I did it. So the second video is gonna be like my actual experience, you know, some funny stories, how I liked it, all that good stuff. So in this first video, I'm going to tell you how I became an EMT. All right, so of course, like the first step that you have to do is do your research and try and find, you know, the cheapest school, but also a school that has a high pass rate for the NREMTs. And I mean, 80% is not bad. Like that's the percentage of people that actually pass the NREMT for the first time in my group. And you just want to be a part of that 80% that pass, basically, you know, because some people, they didn't pass it the first time and they gave up. You know, I could see why someone wouldn't pass it the first time. Like, when you graduate EMT school, it takes forever for them to actually process everything and get it to the state and have everything approved so that you can actually take the NREMTs. You know, it takes a couple of weeks. So I think what a lot of people do is they stop studying and they forget the information. So you don't want to be one of those people. So yeah, so look at, you know, the national pass rate, go to the school, you know, make sure you get a good vibe. At first I was going to join this one academy thing, and I'm so glad I didn't, because they end up shutting down that program a couple of years later. And I decided to go with the community college, and the community college was way cheaper. And, you know, I think it was like a better experience, you know, because, you know, when I went to school, I could go to the library and study, and there was just like way more resources. And it, of course, it was cheaper. Like I said earlier, you have to save probably about $2,000 to do an EMT program, because you have to buy the uniform, the name tag, you know, every little thing. And I was working at a clothing store. I almost said it, but I was working at a clothing store at the time, and I was lucky if I made $300 on a good day for my paycheck. Actually, that was like on a really, really good day. Like I was so broke at the time. So when I first started EMT school, it reminded me of how broke I was, because we had all these expenses, and I just didn't know how I was going to pay for it. But of course, you know, God always gets me through. So if you don't have the money, make sure that you go to a school that will let you do a payment plan. This thing's about to die. So, okay, so my amazing phone decided to die. But, yeah, as I was saying earlier, just make sure you find, you know, a good program that's going to help you prepare for the NREMT, because the last thing that you want to do is spend all this money and then have to retake it. It kind of just sucks, you know, and especially when you don't have the money. Like when I first started EMT school, I was so broke. Like I worked at a clothing store, and it's just, I couldn't pay for it. Like I had to do a payment plan. So thankfully they had that, because, you know, the first day of class, I showed up in flip-flops And that was not a good thing at all. Like, you know, they called me out, and it was kind of like a military style environment. Like, they were just so uptight with everything. And they explained that they have to be like that because you're dealing with real people's lives, and they don't want to sit here and baby you and then you go out in the field and act a fool. So they wanted to make sure that they toughen you up. You know, I was kind of irritated, but I see why they did what they did. And you kind of just get used to it. And you feel, when you're a woman, you kind of feel like you're in a man's world kind of thing. But I didn't let that intimidate me. I feel like it was a good experience for me. I think I was the only chocolate girl. But there was nothing wrong with that. I mean, I would love to see more in the field, but yeah, I'm kind of used to that with most of my science courses anyway, so whatever. But yeah, so you sign up and then make sure that you study. Like, there's some people that actually did this program and they really didn't study as much as they should have. Like, it was crazy. Like, they love like being the EMT and they love the experience of it all, but they didn't want to do like all the work that came with becoming an EMT. And a few people did not make it, and you don't want to be one of those people. But if you happen to not, you know, pass, always, if this is something that you want, always learn from your experience. You know, like, if you didn't pass the first time, you know what you did wrong. You know, I failed classes in my life, which was devastating for me, because I'm more of like a overachiever kind of person. And, you know, I just didn't let that stop me. I always work past those moments. You know, you get over it and you just try it again. So make sure you study. How I studied for EMT school was I would study before class. You know, if I knew we were going to go over something, I would study before class. I would study after class. And, you know, I would come early to school and I would go to the library and read and do all that stuff. Because honestly, I wanted to do well, because I'm like, you know, I'm trying to set myself up for the future. If you're trying to be a PA or a physician or nurse or whatever you're trying to do, this is really good experience, you know, so I didn't want to fail. You learn a lot of things that you don't learn as a CNA. That's why I didn't want to do CNA. I was not too big on the whole bedside thing. So I went the EMT route, and I'm glad I did, because you learn certain things. And even though you may not use them in the field, because a lot of those like intubation and all that stuff, it's more like ALS thing. Like, you can do it, but the ALS would usually take those patients to the hospital. So, but you learn how to intubate, you learn a lot of different airway stuff, and there's just like so many different things that you learn that you don't learn, you know, being a CNA. Not saying anything bad about CNAs, but, you know, it's just two different experiences. And so just make sure you study really hard. And, what else did I write? Yeah, and one other thing, don't expect what you learn in the classroom to be the same exact thing as in the field, because you're going to be disappointed. At first, I'm like, dang, I don't know if I want to do this EMT thing, because some of the ride-alongs that we went on, like, we went to, what is it called? One of those mental health facilities. You know, a lot of the calls were at mental health facilities, and I'd never been to one. And the one I went to was especially bad because the people in there actually look like the people on TV. They look like zombies. And I was like, this is creepy, you know. I mean, of course I got desensitized to the whole situation and I got used to it. But at first I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. You know, part of it was kind of cool, but then part of it was like, okay, this is not what I pictured, you know. But you just got to stick with things sometimes because, you know, you'll get used to it and certain things will just, you know, certain things will pass. But for the most part, you know, I had a good experience. I did all my ride-alongs at the company I wanted to work for, and I did end up working for them. And that was, I think they are like the best ones, you know, out of the 4 that's in the area, they're like the best ones. So I was happy about that. And next thing, the Nremt. So the Nremt is a national exam that you have to take. And honestly, you can pass it on the first try. I mean, if you don't pass it on the first try, do not give up. Because I think it's easy to not pass it on the first try because a lot of times with these programs, like they give you, once you're done with EMT school, you have to turn in all that stuff to the Nremt, like all your graduation stuff. And once you turn those things in, they have to process it, and it takes weeks on weeks on weeks. I think mine took like a month and a half or something like that. And during that time, what I did was I just studied like maybe 2 chapters a day or 1 chapter a day. I forgot what it was, but I made sure I studied, I reviewed my notes, and then I created new notes, shorter notes the second time around. That way, when the week comes for me to take the exam, I just do a quick little review and call it a day. And that really helped me. So make sure that you're keeping up with the reading. Don't just forget about EMT school and forget that you have to take this Nremt exam, okay? So make sure that you're always just pushing and you're always keeping up with the information. Yeah. Also, even when you're in EMT, what am I saying? I'm too tired for this. But even when you have an EMT job, make sure that you also like study. Like my partner and I, we used to actually read our EMT books. Like I think we're going to a call for OBGYN. Someone was like having a baby or something. And we're like, okay, we don't know how to birth no babies. So we decided to read up on it, and we didn't end up having to do that, but sometimes you forget things. Like, and I think sometimes you just have to use common sense when you don't remember every single thing. I've seen doctors that I've shadowed look on the internet for certain things, so it's really easy to forget, especially something you don't really use often. And one thing that I was disappointed in with being an EMT is that I wish that I did more. You know, sometimes we get like all the homeless people and all the drunk people and all the party people, you know, and we'd have to take those people to the hospital. And sometimes to me, that's what made it just repetitive after a while for me, and I just got bored. After a while, it's because we're just doing the basic things, you know, and I thought we'd be doing more. So I wanted the adventure. I wanted to do CPR. I wanted to intubate and stuff like that. But I felt like I wasn't using all the skills that I learned in EMT school. And it was, you know, a little disappointing. But overall, for me, it was a good experience. I worked with, you know, a good group of people. If you have a really good partner, you know, you'll have a lot of fun. You know, I had, you know, good partners, and of course you're gonna fight with these people. You're gonna have good times, bad times, whatever. But you just have to focus on why you're there, and that's for patient care and to better yourself. So, you know, just always focus on what you're doing. And I don't want to make this video too long, but if you have any questions on anything else, let me know. I'm going to make part 2, and I'm going to tell you about some of my experiences, some funny stories, and I'm going to start by telling you how I got my job as an EMT. Okay, so hopefully this one was helpful. Stay tuned for part 2.